I just got done 100% on the campaign of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and before I give you my thoughts on the game, I went into The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with the most minimal of expectations. I had no idea who the main villain was going to be or the villains of the game were going to be. I had no idea what direction they were going to be taking the story. All I knew about this game is that it was based on the Amazing Spider-Man 2 film that came out in 2014, and that Electro was going to be playing a part in this game because he's on the back cover right there. And so I went into this game completely open minded, completely blindsided, knowing nothing of the sorts about this game, and I would highly recommend that's the way to experience this game because there are a lot of surprises and cameos and twists and turns that I did not expect that really caught me off guard, that really added to the experience of this game. And this is a very immersive experience. I slammed through this game all within the course of a week. And when you are playing this game, you are fully immersed into this world. Like, you are Spider Man in this game. And just, I loved playing as Spider Man. I loved going up against all these different villains that the game has, which, since I went into this game with zero knowledge of what to expect, I am going to make this a spoiler free review. I'm not going to be talking about any of the villains or any of the twists and turns that this game has to offer. Because if you have not played The Amazing Spider Man 2, I would highly recommend going to your nearest EB Games, going to your nearest, second hand shop and purchasing this game because this game just blew me the fuck out of the window. I was very happy and satisfied with the experience that this game left me with. And so now to get into my thoughts on the game, and since it's also hot in this room, I do want to speed up this review as well. The first point I want to bring up is the villains. This game has a big selection and a variety of villains that you verse as the game goes along, and some of these villains I am fully immersed in. Like, I have a good amount of knowledge of who these characters are. And then there's some other villains that this was my first introduction. This was my first impressions on the character, and that, like, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed all of these villains, side stories. There's not really one I did not enjoy. I enjoyed, playing through all of the different stories that you play through in this game, and all of the boss fights in this game, which I'm putting the boss fights as a separate category to the villains, because the boss fights in this game, as much as I enjoyed going up against these villains and some of, Spider-Man's most vicious and best arch enemies, unfortunately the boss fights are a weak spot in this game. The boss fights in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 aren't challenging in the slightest. All of these villains you can defeat all in one go. They follow a very similar formula. It really just dodge, attack, dodge again, attack. And if you do that for every single villain, you will slam them out in like 5 minutes. There is no challenge. There is no frustration versing these characters. Like, I thought, the first few boss fights, were going to be pretty easy, but then from there, I thought the boss fights would just get harder and harder and harder. But no, it's not like that at all. All of the boss fights stay at a very easy level. And so yeah, challenge. There's no challenge in the game that way. There's no reward once you really get to the villain. Because, like, I feel like a boss fight, I feel like a must is, it has to be challenging. Because, you've gone through all these different scenarios leading up to that boss fight. So, it should be this big rewarding process, but the game doesn't really treat it like that, because you're versing him, and then you defeat him, and that's really it. There's no satisfaction. But saying that though, like I said, it was fun going up against the villains. I would not lie. If I did have fun, you know, versing these characters. So, yeah. The combat in this game is also very simple. There's not much you can really do with Spider-Man in this game. Um, he has his combo attacks and he has his special attack, but then really besides that, there is not much else to the combat in this game. It's very simple, it's very easy to learn, and while some gamers might really appreciate and like that, I kind of wanted more from the combat in this game. I loved the swinging around the city. I loved the open world aspect to the game. It makes it feel much larger than what it is, and so I really enjoyed having that availability to do like what is it like criminal side missions on the side. I really enjoyed helping citizens. I enjoyed kind of being Spider-Man in that regard. Um, and yeah, this game just had me addicted to it for a good week, and I was shocked at how much I enjoyed this game. And while the villains don't have much to do, once their story is kind of wrapped up, you move on to a new story, and it just doesn't really feel like the game has a particular flow to it. It feels like once one character's story is wrapped up, it moves straight on to the next, and it never comes back to that character. There's never no news report that you hear. There's never no mention of this Spider-Man took down this character. There's never no mention. So it's kind of like a one-off and done kind of story. And so I didn't really like that. There is a lot that they are trying to cram into an 8-hour gameplay. And so, I felt maybe that they could have maybe paced this out a bit better. But, other than that, I really fucking enjoyed this game. It might sound like I'm ranting on the game, but no, I genuinely had a fucking amazing time playing this game. No pun intended. I had such a fun time. I cannot wait to play the first Amazing Spider-Man. I have it hooked up right now, ready to go for when I finish this review. But yeah, the second game has definitely ended on a high for me. I was satisfied with my gaming experience. I think the graphics are really good in the game. Stan Lee, he has a really cool role in the game as well. I really liked his character. So yeah, there is a lot of treats and references for Spider-Man fans in this game, and this game is just pure fan service at its finest, and I loved every moment of when I put this game on and immersed an hour or two into playing it. I loved every second of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So I'd highly recommend, check out The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Go to your local game store and pick this shit up. It's great.